and welcome to Code Tutorials. Today we'll take a look at one of the widgets from the Qi Addons for Elementor Premium plugin. The widget we'll be examining is the horizontal double row projects. With it, you can create a stunning showcase of your projects or portfolio that will mix visual elements with bits of text and animations. Right now, we're on the widgets page and it shows us some examples of how this widget can be used and styled. This particular example is a preview of a homepage from the Qi theme. It's in image form and there's a link we'll be using shortly to take a closer look at it. In the meantime, we have one more example on this page. This is also an image, but it illustrates the variations in style and color that you can have with the horizontal double row projects widget. Now, let's get back to the link for the first example and open it. As I mentioned, this is a demo from the Qi theme. This is a theme designed to be compatible with the Qi Addons collection as a whole. As you can see here, our horizontal double row element is taking up all the page space. And if I scroll, it moves like a slider. You can scroll both up and down, or left and right respectively. There are also hover effects you can add to the images and animation effects you get out of the box. There are all kinds of possibilities that we'll be exploring now. So let's dive in. Head over to the back end. In the Elementor sidebar, search for horizontal double row. There it is. Drag it over to the right. I did some prep work on my page, particularly in adjusting the margins. That's why this section is placed so high on the page. Okay, now this is what the widget looks like by default. We have one featured project with its subtitle, title, and the button for seeing more. And if we scroll, we can see it's accompanied by two items, 1 and 2, both with placeholder content. So, when you start to customize the element, the first option you'll have is the item's hover icon. This icon appears when you hover over an item, so it's not present over the featured project, just over the items, or more specifically, their images. And what I want to do now is replace it. The current icon came from the icon library, and you can pick something new from there. The collection is quite extensive. Or you can upload a custom SVG. That's what I'll do. I have the SVG I want already in my media library, and it's this one, and insert media. Now when I hover over an item, we can see the new icon in place of the old one. Okay, I'm going to skip the items for now. We'll get to them shortly, but first let's see how to customize the featured project or item. This one. The options for that are in a separate section. They comprise the title, that's this text here. You can replace it simply by typing over the dummy text. Give me a sec to add mine in. It's a lengthy bit of text. Okay, we can see it's appeared on the page now. After that, the subtitle option lets us change this text here. You can replace it the same way you did the title. But as I don't plan on using it, I'll simply delete the placeholder text and the element will adjust seamlessly. Then we have the image. Simply upload the new one. Give me a moment to select mine. Insert. Alright, here we go. Below that we have this option where we can change the button text. That's the text on this button here. I'll replace mine. Just a sec. There. Then we have the link field. This is where you enter the URL for the button target. The button seems clickable by default. And if you don't select a specific URL, then it will simply work to take you to the same page you're already on, a bit like adding a hashtag as a placeholder. Keep in mind that's just the button. The image and any text content you add will not be clickable without a specific URL. But once you add something to this field, even if it's just a hashtag, then the title will become clickable along with the button. Alright. That's part of the feature project customized, but we still have two more sections for that. The next one is featured button. This is where you can change certain button characteristics, such as its layout. I'm going to make mine textual. By the way, I'm not covering these options in detail as you get them with all the buttons in Qi Addons. So if you'd like to see them explained in more detail, you can check out the pop-up link for our button tutorial. Okay. With the textual button, we also have the option to enable a button text underline. I'm going to switch it to yes to get a line under the text. There it is. Now this is all just setting the basis. Styling the project's element as well as its individual parts will come later. Now we have one more section that applies to the featured project, and that is the featured button icon. In here we can select an icon that will be placed to the left or the right of the button text. You can choose something from the icon library or upload an SVG. Then you can switch its position between left and right. Okay, that's as far as the options for customizing the featured project go. So we can go back to the first section and take a look at the options for the items. As you can see, we have 2 by default, and on the page, that's these 2. Now let's open one up. The options here contain the item title field. That's for this text here. And alongside that, we have the item subtitle, which is this bit of text here. Then we have the item image, where we'll be replacing this dummy image. And finally, we have the item link, where we can add a URL that will cover the entire item content. So the entire text and the image as well would be clickable. Okay, we've seen the options and we can now go through them to customize the item. We'll do that together and then I'll skip ahead because I have numerous items planned and that's going to take quite a while. By the way, you can add new items by clicking on this button here. Alright, let's dive in. I'll start from the top and change the title first. There. Then I'll change the subtitle too. And that's all my text content done. We can see my new title and subtitle on the page. Now I can proceed to change the image. I already have the one I want in my media library, so I'll just select it and insert. Perfect. My item is almost done. Both the image and text are there. All I have left is the link. Since this is just a tutorial, I'll set a hashtag as a placeholder. Now, if we examine the item, everything I hover over is clickable. And that's how you customize your item. That's simple. Now, as I promised, I'll skip ahead while I sort out the remaining items in the background. And here we are. All my new items are here. There's a dozen of them and they showcase an extensive project portfolio. Whether you'll create something smaller scale or a larger scale depends entirely on your business needs. Generally, I wanted to illustrate that this widget can support you no matter what you decide to do. Also, the content in this case comes from the architectural business niche, but the format can just as easily be adapted to music albums, project milestones, research advancement, anything you can think of. The horizontal double row projects widget is pretty versatile. Now, with my featured project and all the items customized, we can check what options we have left in the Content tab. We covered all these, so that brings us to Developer Tools. This is an option you get with all of our widgets. If you switch it to yes, it will display the widget in the form of a WordPress shortcode, this text above, which you can easily copy for use elsewhere on your site. Alright, I'll switch this back. Under that, we have the Help section. It contains various helpful resources, including a link to our Help Center. And finally, the section with the red text contains a link for purchasing the premium version of Qi Addons for Elementor. That's all for the Content tab. Let's move on to the next one, Style. The first thing we can set here is the content padding. You can see when I start to increase how both the featured project and the items shift to accommodate the changing space around them. So the padding is applied to the content as an integral whole. As I don't want to have the same values on all sides, I'll click here to delink the fields and then set percentages as the unit of measure. Finally, I'll put 7% for the top padding, 15% for the right, 7% for the bottom and 9.4% for the left. After that, we have the height option. Now, I can't show you the effects of this one as, if you look at the note below, you'll see that the option will be ignored if the page height is greater than the window height, which in my case it is. You can see, if I increase the value here, nothing happens. That's because my page is longer than what we can see on the screen, the height of the window. The window is this space with a browser. And the height option serves to set the vertical gap between the smaller item projects. Since they zigzag up and down, the height is there to reduce or increase the gap between those that are up and those that are down. You'll most likely use this option if you decide to set a horizontal double row projects widget as the only element on the page and then have a page that is shorter than the window height. Alright, after this we can set the space between items. As you can see, this option allows us to space out the items in our project showcase. You can add more room here in this in-between space, or you can reduce the gap. I want to give my project some room, so I'll put 170 pixels for this. Perfect. Next, we have the icon color option. With it, we can change the color of this icon here. However, you might recall I chose to upload an SVG, and this SVG is tailor-made, so it has all the settings it needs within its code. That includes the color. So if I try to change the color using the option, we can see it doesn't make a difference as my icon already has its color nailed down. But if I had used an icon from the library, let me switch it briefly to show you, I'll find another arrow icon. This will do. Insert. And now if we look, there it is. The color works perfectly fine with a different icon. But since this is not the icon I actually want to use, I'll restore the old one. Okay, it's selected, so just insert media. Okay, let me check. It's back. Alright, let's return to the Style tab. So, we saw the icon color. I'll clear the setting as I don't need it. That brings us to the next option, icon size. This is something that I didn't already have set for my icon, so we can see how a change in value would affect it. It's much smaller now. It's nice, but I prefer the more noticeable, somewhat larger icon. So I'll set 52 pixels here. Let me check. Perfect. After this, we have the background style section. As you can see, it offers the possibility of adding an image for the project showcase background. If you switch it to yes, you'll get additional options, which include a field for uploading a new image. The switch also triggers the default background image. It's this. Because of its dimensions, it has to repeat to cover the whole element. So image dimensions are something to keep in mind if you opt to set the background. And the other option that appears is for adjusting the vertical offset. In other words, it lets you shift the image downward. I don't plan on using a background image, so I'll simply switch this to no. Alright, let's see what's in the next section. In item style, we have options that let us adjust the look of the items within the project showcase. Please note, this does not include the featured project or item. We have separate settings for that. With the first option here, we can change the width of the items. You can see how they've shifted. Of course, you can increase this even more, or you can clear this to restore the default value. Then there's the hover background color option. This will appear over the image when we hover. If I set a random color and then hover, there. This red color has replaced the default gray that shrouds the image on hover. And if you don't want solid coverage like this, then you can also add a degree of transparency to whatever color you choose. Then you'd get something like this. I'm happy keeping the default settings, so I'll clear this. Next, we have the title tag option. That's for this text here. The default is H4 and I like the way it looks, so I'll be keeping it. But you can pick any of the other options in this drop-down. Also for the title, there's the title color option, so you can set any shade you like. And after that, we have the title typography. It allows us to set things like the font family for the title. There are hundreds of fonts for you to choose from. Then, with the size option, we can adjust the title size. I'm going to set mine to 25 pixels. After that, the weight option offers all these settings for adjusting the font weight. The transform option can be used to change the title to, say, uppercase. The style option is there to make the text italic if you want. The decoration lets us add a line under, over, or through the title text. And then we have the spacing options. Line height for creating more space over and under the title, letter spacing for spreading out the letters, and word spacing for creating more room between the words. And that's it for the typography options. Now we have a set of settings that apply to the subtitle. The first is subtitle tag, which applies to this text here, our subtitle. You can keep the default paragraph tag or pick one of the H tags to replace it. Then there's the subtitle color, where we can change the color of the subtitle text, and the subtitle typography. When we open it, we can see it has all the same settings that we had under title typography. So I won't go into the explanation again, I'll simply use the settings I need. Those are font family, I want to change it, give me a sec, okay, and the font size. I'll put 14 pixels for my subtitles. That's all. Moving on, our next section is spacing item style. It contains the title margin top option, which can be used to add more space above the title. You can see here how it changes. I'm going to leave it set to 19 pixels. Then there's the subtitle margin top for adding more space above the subtitle. As you can see, this can be used to separate them a bit. I'm going to set 7 pixels for that. Alright. The next few sections will help us style the featured project rather than the items. We have all kinds of options here and they all apply to this first project in the showcase, the featured one. Firstly, we can adjust its content width. You can use the slider or type in a new value. Then we can change the title tag for this text here. H2 is set by default, but you can replace it with any of the others here. And there's the title color too, if we want to change the color of the title text. Then the title typography can help us change things like the font family. Give me a sec to find the one I want. There it is. And while I'm here, I'll set the size to 35 pixels and switch the font weight to 400, which is the same as normal. Last but not least, I'll set the line height to use pixels and type in 38. There, perfect. So that was the title of my featured project. Now we have several options for its subtitle. I deleted mine, it was above the title, but if you're still using yours, you can style its tag, color, or change its typography here. Alright, the section after that is for adjusting the spacing of the content in our featured project or item. The options here include content margin top. This helps us separate the text content from the image above it. When we start to increase it, this is where we'll see the change. Okay, let me clear this. Under that, we have the title margin top. This is for creating more space above the title, or separating it from the subtitle if you kept yours. Given that I don't have a subtitle, I can use both this and the option above to create some additional space here. I do want to have a gap, so I'll set 29 pixels. Alright, and under that we have the button margin top. The same as the others, it's used to create more space. In this case, above the button, here. I'm going to set 25 pixels for that. Okay. After that, we have the featured button style section, where we can adjust the look of our button. We have the typography options. These will help you style your button text, no matter which type of button you're using. For starters, I'll change the font here so it matches the one I'm using for my title. And I'll put the size down as 14 pixels. Switch the weight to 400, and transform the text to uppercase. Finally, I'll use the letter spacing option to space out the letters a bit. Perfect. Then there are these normal and hover switches. Under normal, we can pick the text color for our button text. You can easily choose any shade you like. Simply type in the hex code or use the slider. I'll be using plain black for my button text. There. Now, under hover, there's the text hover color. You can use this option if you want to set a different color for your button text, which will appear on hover. I'll be keeping mine the same. This brings us to the next section, featured button icon style. Essentially, if you added an icon to your button, this is where you'd be able to style it. As I don't have an icon, I'll simply move on to the next section, which actually is empty. The featured button inner border style will show options to those who are using the button type called with inner border. My button is textual, so this doesn't apply to me. So I can carry on straight to the final section, which is the featured button underline style. I do have options here because I enabled the button underline. If you open this and don't see any options here, that's because you aren't using a button underline. In terms of the options we get here, under Normal, there's the underline color. It has this standard color picker, so it's easy to set whatever you like. Then we can change the underline width, or length more accurately. And if you opt for reducing it, you can then adjust its alignment. The default puts it on the left, but we can set it to the right, which looks like this, or we can put it in the center, and it would look something like this. I'm going to restore this to the default settings. So, alignment, left, and the width, I can clear this to restore the default value, which is the whole length of the text. Or I can achieve the same effect by switching to percentages and putting down 100. There, the line follows the whole length of the text. Alright, I skipped over a couple of options in all of this. Underline offset would help us move the underline up or down, so it's either closer to or further away from the button text, whichever you prefer. I'll leave mine set to 3 pixels. And finally, we have the underline thickness, so we can make the line bolder if we want to. Now, over in the hover section, we have a lot of the same options, only these show their effects on hover. So there's underline hover color, if we want to set a different color for the underline. And before we look at it, I'll change the underline hover width. I'm doing this because the underline has an effect that makes it seem to vanish when we hover over it. So to keep the line and its new color visible, I'll switch this to percentages and set 100. Now if we look, there, this is what the color change might look like. But there's another change you can introduce on hover. Let me clear the color. And that is enabling the hover underline draw. By switching this to yes, we are going to add an animation effect that makes the line look like it's being drawn right now. Okay, I've completed my planned design of the horizontal double row project element, and I can hit update to save my work. I've accomplished all I wanted, both for my featured project and all the little item projects. And if we scroll through the showcase I made, the projects are all there. And again, whether you opt for creating more or fewer projects than I did, this widget will ensure the whole showcase looks great on the page. As you've seen, we have numerous options with this widget. So we can also adjust things like the spacing between elements, item width, and more. All of that to get to whatever design we can think of. Not to mention all the color and typography settings we can play around with. Hopefully you found this tutorial on the horizontal double row projects widget helpful. And the breakdown of the element we saw at the start, it's on the widgets page, there it is, has helped you to see how easily you can make stunning centerpiece elements on your own. You can create something similar to what we just did, or use a completely different design solution. It's up to you. If you have any questions after watching this video, or comments or suggestions you'd like to make, please drop us a line in the comments section below. Also, make sure to subscribe to our channel and be the first to learn about any new tutorials and theme guides.